Andrew Young, who was right there beside Dr. King every step of the way in the civil rights movement, even up until his assassination. And he talked about how Dr. King dealt with the thought of death. And it is something that you may not have heard, but I want you guys to hear that this morning, and it may change your perspective, because it is really, really, really deep. Here is Ambassador Andrew Young right now.
Well, Dr. King lived with death every day of his life. I mean, from the time they made him the president of the Montgomery Improvement Association, the death threat started in 1955. He was stabbed in 1958 or 59 in Harlem, and he used to joke about that. But when they removed the letter opener from his chest, they had to cut a cross to open up his chest to delicately remove it. When they sewed him up, he had a scar in his chest shaped like a cross. And he said, this was from before 1960. And he said, every morning when I wash my face and brush my teeth, I look at the cross and I realize that this day might be my last. And he said, but don't worry, you're going to die too. He said, that's one thing we all have in common. We are going to die. And he said, you don't have anything to say about how you die. You don't have anything to say about when you die. The only choice you have is what you die for. So if you don't find something you're willing to give your life for, you're really not fit to live anyway. And so he challenged us every day to make your life and death worthwhile. And so I always figured that I just didn't want to get hit by a truck. I don't mind dying. And I grew up in a family where my grandmother lost her sight when she was 80. And from 80 to 88, that was between about 8 and 14 or so. My job was to read the Bible and the newspaper to her every day. And she looked forward to death. She prayed to God to take her home. And she would fuss with God because she didn't want to be a burden to her children and grandchildren. It was no burden to me. It was giving me a comfort level for death. And so death has never been a problem for me, because it wasn't a problem for my grandmama. My grandmama looked forward to it. Martin was not afraid of death. He came closer to death, he said, in that midnight ride when he was arrested here in Atlanta in 1960. They took him over to DeKalb County, and then they came to get him out of jail in DeKalb County in the middle of the night. They put him in chains and put him in the back of a paddy wagon with just him and a German Shepherd. And they rode from DeKalb County all the way down to Reidsville in the middle of the night. And he was in chains, and he said he was sure he was going to his death then. And he said he didn't mind dying, but the hours leading up to it were so, trying to wonder what he could do, what he could think, how to pray. And I think it was a good thing he wasn't afraid of dogs, because I think he said every time he rolled, that German Shepherd growled. And so I think the German Shepherd might have kept him alive, because he wasn't afraid of dogs, and he probably talked to the dog. But he would not talk about that night much, except to say that it was the worst night of his life. They were worse. He would laugh and joke about being stabbed in Harlem. He was pretty close to death then. He would laugh about his home being bombed, and he'd joke with us about the possibilities of our death. And death was something that he laughed at and made us laugh at. And so we were not afraid to die, I don't think. I was taught as a child, you never run from a dog or a bully. You stand up to them. See, you might get bit and you might get hit, but it won't be nearly as bad as it would be if you run. I grew up in a mixed up neighborhood where I had to either be a good fighter, fast runner, or nonviolent. And nonviolent came out. Being able to be friendly and talk to people and kind of win them over was easier for me than fighting and running.
7:22 right now.
Wow, what a story.
Unbelievable. Ambassador Andrew Young on how Dr. King dealt with the thought of death. Here's Andra Day and Rise Up on your MLK Jr. holiday on V103.